Howdy, friends, and a happy Monday to you. Another week of Lyme Disease Awareness Month, the month of May, is upon us. And as you know, every Monday, I've been sharing here live little parts of my story to healing from Lyme. Spoiler alert, I heal, right? But I share in the hopes of providing hope for healing to you as well. Because if nothing else, my story is not unique. All right. And I want you to know that. And that's part of what I do and what I offer to the world of Lyme warriors in general is a place where holistic healing is acceptable and pursued and doable. I help to empower you to experience that from a place of peace and from a place of success. Because let's be real, it feels good to heal. I did not intend to rhyme that. So I'm here today with part 3 of my Lyme journey. I believe this is going to turn out to be a 5-part series, but that's so that you can see each step along the way. And also, it's been a 20-year process to today. So I'm breaking it down in chunks for you. That's a lot to cover in just one video. And people have been asking me about more details of my story, and I'm at a place where I love to share that. It's part of my healing, in fact, to share that. So, side note, I encourage you all to share your healing journeys as your healing miracles are unfolding, because they're there. We just have to recognize them, right? So to start with today, if you missed part 1 and part 2 of this video series, I've linked the first part. Make sure you catch that first in the comments. And then a few videos after that, you'll find part 2. If you're catching this on YouTube, the YouTube graphic is the same, just with a different part labeled for you. So you should be able to find it very easily and track each part of the journey. And if you're catching this on YouTube, especially, make sure you're liking and subscribing so you're not missing any content, okay? And I appreciate the support too. If you appreciate my journey, you can just hit like and I'll feel the love, right? Also, I encourage all of you, if you're not already in there, jump into the Limey and Crunchy Holistic Healing community. I've linked it already in the description for you. When this video is over, you can just go there. It's free, it's fun, and it's all about this holistic healing journey. It's a creation that I am bringing to the world because it wasn't there when I needed it. A group like that, a community like that, a chat like that did not exist when I could have used it the most. And I don't want to see anyone missing out on that opportunity either. So those are all the ways you can plug in as soon as this video is over and get even more holistic Lyme healing content. Okay. Especially this month, it's coming at you hard and fast for Lyme Disease Awareness Month. Why not, right? It's the best time to activate extra awareness. All right, back to my notes. I'll stay on track for y'all. So picking up where I left off in part 2, I had been diagnosed with Lyme disease at this point, but was not yet properly treated. There was a small treatment attempt made. You'll see that in the previous videos. But I hadn't had proper and ongoing treatment, and I was still grossly symptomatic. Just didn't realize that was all the pieces of my autoimmune puzzle, right? So I didn't realize I needed to be advocating more for myself than I was, but I was also happy to be experiencing a little more healing than I had been previously. Prior to this point in my life, when I'm entering now into like early adulthood, I'm about to enter college, and I'm finally at a place where I feel like doing college is even possible. Prior to this, I had been nearly bedridden. So this was already, my healing was already starting to like slowly improve, to the point where I was kind of satisfied, but hoped I could even do better for myself. So I was kind of feeling like both sides of the spectrum. Ooh, I healed a little, but also, can I do better? Can I get more healing? But I didn't know how to really pursue that. And I was looking for it mostly in a Western medicine place and wasn't getting it very much there. I was starting to get increasingly frustrated. I was seeing a rheumatologist for a lot of my rheumatological conditions that were really Lyme, but he didn't recognize that. I didn't recognize that. And I was getting frustrated with lack of progress I was making in my health. And I was starting to realize on my own as I was becoming an adult and had learned how to advocate for myself to a large degree already in my young life, that there should be more answers and less band-aids of symptoms. Like I felt like we are just slapping band-aids on my symptoms and not really addressing like why I was even sick to begin with. Again, I didn't even realize it was Lyme though. So, two of the major modalities, I guess you could call them, that I talked about in part 2 that kind of catapulted me towards healing a little bit, gave me a glimpse of the progress that was possible, were myofascial release therapy and seeing seeking alternative medicine, specifically a homeopathist that introduced me to alternative medicine in general, and lifestyle and dietary changes that I hadn't really been exposed to yet. So at that point, with those 2 modalities in place, I would say those were huge turning points for me and moved me forward. So I finished out high school doing a bit better, like I said, but still like trying to figure things out a little bit more. I did not feel like I had reliable, predictable health or healing. I still sadly identified as like sick for the most part, or I thought of myself more as a sick person with relapses and ups and downs, and who knows how I'll be feeling, and just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear around what was to come for me. But I also was starting to dream a little bit more again. By that, I mean set some more goals and think about my future a little bit differently because previously I didn't know if I would have a future. I literally thought I was dying at a point in my teenage years. So now I realize maybe the worst is over, but now what? Well, through all this, I actually had my eyes set on a career hopefully in the health sciences or in healthcare. I always had an interest in science, and then going through my health struggles, just made me acutely aware of healthcare. And initially, I thought I'd be a physical therapist and athletic trainer because they were so instrumental in my journey in different ways. But I started school in that major and actually ended up switching for a variety of reasons, actually, to a nursing major. And boy, was that a pretty good choice, actually. So, everything ends up the way it needs to be, right? So, I ended up becoming a nurse. I was married to this wonderful man, still am, got married to this wonderful man who is still my husband, Cameron. I love him dearly, and he is so supportive of my healing journey and my health in general. And I couldn't ask for a better partner to do life with. So, shout out to Cam and shout out to the fact that your support team does matter. And I know that's easier said than done. And that's something I like to tackle with people that I work with and Limeys that I'm helping with healing because it has to be tackled. It has to be tackled. And just having that one person there for me, this whole, like much of the rest of my journey here until now, even has been hugely instrumental in the things life has thrown my way and our family's way, as you will see in coming videos. Okay. So, I was fully supported by my husband and other people and family and friends too along the way. But being married to someone like that is like such a key piece of my healing. I got a job in a local prestigious hospital in the ICU that I wanted to work in, and it was awesome. And I was doing a career that like made sense for me, felt good to be doing, and I felt like I was challenged and working my hardest and really kind of optimizing my strengths and skills, and it felt good to be in that space, that place where I didn't even know a few years prior if I would have a meaningful career option, even with as sick as I had been. I didn't know if I'd end up married as sick as I had been. Like, I had trouble dreaming of those basic things in life. So here I was living the dream, kind of, to me, in a way. It's not the only dream, but for me, it was a successful moment in my life. My career was going well, but my health wasn't going so great as I ventured into nursing. It was fine for a little while, but I was working swing shifts and day and night shift alternating patterns, and that got to my health. Plus, it was a stressful job. It was a very busy, very education driven ICU setting, which I loved, but came with a lot of stress. And with brain fog in the picture, it was extra stressful for me to make sure I was like functioning at optimal levels. It was pretty much all I would do is go to work and sleep and rest. And I was not living the best life, having the maximum experiences and getting the most out of life that I could, but I was also watching my health decline a little bit more. So at this point, I wasn't seeing any alternative medical practitioners. I was still getting myofascial release pretty regularly. It was still helpful, but I was also accruing more autoimmune and rheumatological diagnoses. I was being worked up for lupus. I was kind of headed down the path. I was a diagnosis away basically from actual lupus diagnosis. Um, and there were some other questions of certain other rheumatological conditions being thrown around as well. And then I was also experiencing hormonal imbalances and issues too, which I actually now looking back believe were a result of Lyme messing with everything. And I was also headed down the path of a PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome diagnosis as well. And I was actually advised to begin a workup for that, which I didn't end up doing. In the meantime, other health stuff you'll see comes into play instead. And I actually don't have PCOS, by the way. So we're good there, but it was headed for that. I don't also have lupus, by the way. Resolved those symptoms and those lab values and all the things in the meantime. So, but this is when we started. My husband and I were looking at my health and like, this is not optimal. And what circumstances can we change to help change my health? Because it's obviously heading in a not ideal direction. And also on the table was the fact that we were looking at starting a family in the near future. And with my hormones so wacky, that was not looking like an easy possibility, if one at all. We weren't sure. So I approached my boss at work actually, realizing that work might be one of the only things I could at least attempt to change. I didn't really want to switch careers altogether or anything like that. And I really wanted to stay where I was working. I loved the unit I was in. So I just asked. And sometimes, guys, asking is the best thing we can do for ourselves. Here's proof. I just asked my boss. I said, look, this isn't like the shifts I'm working is causing some health problems, to be honest with you. And I really could use part-time day shift hours, at least for a little while. I don't know if that's an option because we didn't have that position posted. It wasn't like an available position. But she was actually able to make that position available and no one else bid on it. And I was able to get that position that I needed, part-time day shift. It worked out for me. I know that's not always the case, but again, guys, sometimes you just have to ask and do a little pursuit of what you want or need to get answers, even for our healing and our health. And actually, my health started improving almost immediately. And guess what? I was pregnant within a few months. Everything, hormonally at least, kind of regulated and normalized. And I actually started to feel better. And pregnancy helped me feel a little better, which is very common in some of these cases too. So, yay, right? Yay, yay. Now, at the same time, again, not ironically, not by luck, not by chance, but by divine intervention or the healing gods that be, whatever you want to call it. My husband's boss at the time and his wife were both being seen by a Lyme Literate nurse practitioner locally to us. And they had been telling my husband about it, or he found out about it. And then Cameron's wheels started spinning and his ears perked up. And he was like, oh my gosh, my wife has a diagnosis of Lyme disease from like long ago. Do you think this would be helpful to her? Because she's still like, he was starting to put the pieces together. I was still seeming a little sick, similar to the way they were sick. Could this all be related? And they were like, definitely. They advised me to watch the documentary Under Our Skin, which was newer at the time. It wasn't brand new anymore, but it was, excuse me, it was still the sequel wasn't, part two wasn't out yet. I'll put it that way. And they told me to consider reaching out to the Lyme provider they were seeing. So I almost immediately watched this documentary. I'm a sucker for good documentaries. And I was like mouth agape, shocked. I was shook at what I saw. Part of it didn't surprise me, but also it was such confirmation for what I had been going through all this time. So I watched the documentary, like I said, almost immediately. And it also instilled in me what I consider, I'm not a big fan of acting out of a place of like fear, but sometimes we have to, right? To get away from a bear, we got to run out of fear, right? Sometimes being scared is our next step to not being scared anymore. So I was kind of shaken into a bit of a fear state because I was pregnant. And I saw from that documentary what that could mean for my baby, knowing I had untreated Lyme. At that point, all the pieces just started making sense in my brain. And I was like, I talked to Cameron. I'm like, I think I need to call this lady and find out like what I need to do because now I've got answers for myself and a baby to look out for that is potentially compromised by my health. It's the start of motherhood began at about 8 weeks pregnant for me at this point. I was really early on, thank goodness. But um, this fear pushed me into action, let's say, okay? I called this Lyme Literate provider that was recommended to us, and she actually was able to get me in within a few weeks. And you know what? Bonus points for my situation. She was also a nurse midwife too. And so it was like the perfect answer for the stage of life I was at. I didn't even know there was such thing as a Lyme Literate provider. All I knew is that this lady specialized in tick-borne illnesses and knew about babies. And I was there. I didn't research anyone else. I didn't even know to do that. I didn't look for second opinions or even look for recommendations other than this, my husband's boss. I just knew this was the right path for me, and I would stop or deviate or pivot if anything showed up that led me to need to do that. So I went to her. And honestly, there are more parts to the series coming, but I can say the rest is history. She has been part of our family to this day, 10 years later now, because my daughter that I was pregnant with at that time and didn't know she was my daughter yet is now 10 years old at the time of this recording. Now, that's a bit of a spoiler alert, I guess, but that is the kind of provider she has been in our lives. She was the right choice at the right time for us. So I'm so grateful that I had her protocols to go off of. Now, people often want to know, well, what protocol did you do? Tell me exactly what you took and how much and when. And listen, I'm happy to have private conversations about some of that, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'll warn you for the coming parts, I'm not going to have super great details about that. First of all, because it's her practice and her protocols. And I cannot just share every single detail about all of it with every person. Second of all, I wouldn't do that anyway, because as I've learned along the way, everyone's needs and protocols are going to look different. I was treating during pregnancy and then through 3 more pregnancies after this one. So 4 pregnancies and 4 breastfeeding situations afterwards. So that in and of itself influenced most of the time. That was like 8 years worth of treatment. I was pregnant or breastfeeding through. That influenced what I was able to take and how I was able to do protocols. So that alone is going to be unique to my situation and what you're able to tolerate, what your genetics look like, how you detox, how good you are at taking your supplements and and how good you are at adhering to a treatment. All of that is going to impact what your protocol might look like and what's best for you. I can tell you this much, though. I'm not trying to be secretive, but I'm trying to encourage people to find what they need to find that works for them and for their body and for their unique situations, because no one is necessarily going to heal on the exact same protocol as someone else. So I can tell you this much, though. My provider utilizes herbals and antibiotics, lifestyle changes and supplementation, and does a little bit to her benefit with diet and gut healing as well. And she guides you through some of that too. She's not a functional medicine provider per se, but she recognizes that form of medicine and those, that form of practicing medicine, and is very collaborative in the sense of also seeing what does work for you. For example, I wanted so many times to get off of antibiotics just because I preferred to be on an herbal regimen only, but I didn't thrive on herbal regimens for a long time. I used them in combinations with antibiotics for a while when I could. Herbals were less safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding, so I was limited some of the time with what I could do. But her treatments worked really well for me overall, over time, and in the big picture. And I always felt like I was making gains with minimal herxing or minimal extreme detox reactions or anything like that because of how she managed my treatment. So if you're looking for a good Lyme Literate provider, there are some things you can definitely be looking at. If you'd like me to send the blog post I did about questions to ask when looking for Lyme Literate providers, so you know if they're going to be a good fit for you, because I know they're not all a good fit for everyone, right? I'm happy to shoot you that blog post link so you can be asking the right questions, right? So I learned that through interacting with my provider and hearing about what other people's experiences were, and figured out that we were a good fit and we were a good collaborative team together. And now I am on all herbal protocols currently, and it's working out really well for me, but I could not tolerate that and see gains. I was having increased symptoms and lack of progress and worsening lab work, which I know labs are controversial indicators, but for me, they've actually helped with some of my diagnostics and treatment too, in conjunction with my symptoms. And they've tended to align. And if anything, my labs sometimes look worse than my symptoms are for me, which is, I'll take it. That's a sign that my body's doing what it's designed to do too, to help fight any bad guys. So, all that to say, I've done combinations of things, multiple treatments wherever possible, and rotated through various treatments periodically to keep it fresh and to keep the Lyme guessing, which is typically a good plan for any regimen. Pulsing is also possible and can be done too through that as well, which is just some days on, some days off of a regimen to, again, bring out the Lyme, kill it, keep the cysts busted and the biofilms busted, and kind of do what you can to attack the spirochetes the best you can, because they're tricky. And co-infections are tricky too. And that's been all part of the regimen I've been on to address co-infections and Lyme. Currently, I'm left positive and slightly symptomatic still for Lyme and Bartonella. All my other co-infections are both lab negative and I'm asymptomatic of. So at the time of seeing her, I was diagnosed with anaplasmosis, mycoplasma pneumoniae, babesia, and Lyme, and activated Epstein-Barr virus, maybe HHV and some other like viral activations, but those come with the territory. So I don't always consider them co-infections as much as part of the journey. All are under control, in remission, or negative, however you're looking at it, and have been for a while. So I'm at that place. Bartonella is a newer diagnosis, and you can follow that journey here on YouTube or on my blog as well, if you prefer to read it instead of hear it. And that was a more recent diagnosis after my last pregnancy and breastfeeding journey was over. We found the Bartonella finally. It just was sneaky, and it was hiding behind a lot of other things in my body, I guess, and a lot of other layers of healing. So cool. It's out in the open now, and I'm going to tackle it. So, as time goes on with the development of treatments and lab work improvements to a degree and stuff like that, there have been advancements being able to be made in diagnosing and treating tick-borne illnesses. So it's a good thing too. Time can bring up better healing opportunities. And that's what happened for me. So I'm glad to be able to tackle this BART. It's going all right. I'm not super symptomatic, which is great. So Lyme and BART, those two little buggers. So that's all right. I'm still making gains. I'm not fully in remission, if you like that word. I don't necessarily care about that word. I care more about my overall healing. And I haven't been this healthy since I was 11 years old. So catch the first two parts of my journey if you missed them, and stay tuned for the last two parts. We're at the middle road here. What happens next for me? Is it all smooth sailing for the next 10 years? What does that look like for me? And is that what you can expect your journey is going to look like? Trust me, I've got some input and thoughts for you coming next week. So stay tuned. Next Monday, you'll find me here sharing part 4. In the meantime, get plugged in, check out the description of this video for links to where else you can find me and what else I am up to in the Lyme community in order to help you find your best healing journey too and put your best foot forward. I am not a Lyme Literate provider. Everything I said here is not meant to be medical advice. It's meant to be a sharing of stories for educational purposes and for collaboration purposes. And so you can learn and make decisions that are best for yourself. So go be empowered, all right, to move forward in your best healing journey. And if you need me, I'm here to help. You can find me at the links below, or comment, or reach out, or message me. I'm happy to chat with you more. I love talking to other Lymies and learning along with them too. All right, you guys. Cheers for now.